You know how it's hi here. You're live. Go ahead. Hello, everybody.
Make sure we can hear you.
Okay.
Screen.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We're gonna be able to hear you. I just need to click over to YouTube.
Okay.
1 minute.
Okay.
Not even.
We're trying to get live on YouTube.
Okay, you are live.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, January 8th, 2024, and I am calling the 2025. Thank you, 2025. And I'm Senator Ruth Hardy, and I am calling the Joint Canvassing Committee to order. You all, well, many of you, most of you in the room are members of the Joint Canvassing Committee that have been appointed by your respective chambers in order to certify right? It's certify is the right word. Is that right? That'll work. The results of the 2024 election for statewide officers. And I first want to just thank you all for your service. Many of you are new legislators, so welcome to the legislature and welcome to the State House, and thank you for your service. It's really wonderful to serve with all of you. And I also just want to introduce briefly my co-chair, Representative Matt Feierong from the House Gov Ops Committee. Rep. Feierong and I serve on the Government Operations Committee. At least today we do. Who knows what we'll be doing tomorrow. And we both serve in the Addison County. So it's nice to have Rep. Feierong here with me. And also, I also want to introduce the Secretary of State who will speak next. But I want to thank, first and foremost, the voters who showed up and voted in this election so that we can have this process. It was a big election year and we had really strong turnout, and I think that's wonderful. And so now I'm going to turn it over to the Secretary of State, Sarah Copeland-Hanzis.
Thank you, Senator Hardy, and thank you all for being part of the canvassing committee. This is typically these days a fairly quick process. You all have the report in front of you and can be reviewing the results. You have access to our office and our elections director in the event that you have any questions about the results that you see in front of you. This is the final or next to last step in the process of finalizing the results of the 2024 election. Statewide officials need to be canvassed certified by the legislature. And for the offices of governor, lieutenant governor, and treasurer, those candidates are required to receive 50% plus one. And so the unusual aspect of this year's canvassing committee is that the office of lieutenant governor did not achieve a 50% plus one number. And so you will see that reflected in the report that you have here in front of you. And you will have the opportunity to review all of the statewide elected officials' results, and feel free to ask us any questions that you might have. Secretary Bloomer can probably dredge back in the Constitution how this process has played out over Vermont's history, but just be glad that this is more like a 10 or 15 minute meeting today, as opposed to dumping all of the ballots that every Vermonter cast and you actually counting every single one of them. So thank you to my elections team. They helped facilitate your town and city clerks overseeing the counting of those votes so that what we can do is certify the results today. Thank you. We have a great deal of expertise here in the room in the event that you have questions about the numbers or about the process. We have the House Clerk, Betsy Ann Rask, and of course the Senate Secretary, John Bloomer. So between the elections team and these folks, you should be able to get all of your questions answered, and we stand at the ready to support you in moving the election to its final conclusion tomorrow.
I just want to also thank the Secretary of State and her team. She had a new elections director, Sean Sheehan. If you want to stand up and just say hi. Sean was brand new to this district and did an amazing job of overseeing a statewide election in a presidential year. So it was sort of, you know, jump in head first into your job. So thank you for all the work you did on behalf of Vermonters and voters this year. And to you, Madam Secretary, for your great work overseeing this election. So I think you should review the paper. Couple years, 6 years ago, my first year in the session, there was a math error on it under the previous Secretary of State, by the way. So if you do find any math errors, please let us know. But these should be the official results that we will then tomorrow in our joint assembly certify as a joint assembly, and we will actually take a vote on the lieutenant governor's race. So I'm going to turn it over to Secretary Bloomer for some more historical information, legal information.
Well, I'll give you sort of the process. Some of you are new. For those of you who don't know me, I've been here for a while. So returning house members, hello. New house members, I'm the equivalent of, well, I'm not quite as good as Betsy Ann, right? I'm the equivalent on the Senate side. And so the process really is, just explained to you very well, is the Constitution requires that 3 of the officers get a majority, the governor, lieutenant governor, and treasurer. The other 3 officers, statewide officers, are kind of left to you all as the legislature to set what it is, and it's a plurality is currently what it is. And so in that sense, the Constitution requires you, as sort of mentioned, to review that and make sure that the numbers are correct. Going long ago, as was mentioned, that might have involved you having all the ballots here and to count them. The process has sort of been involved, so we rely on a Secretary of State with her staff, come up with tabulations, the parties are involved, as you're probably all familiar, and then they put together the numbers. And this report that's in front of you was created by the Secretary of State's office. It tells you what the different numbers were, and also gives you what the conclusion was. So if you look at it, the election for the governor gives you the numbers, and it says someone did get a majority. And so he's declared the winner, Philip Scott. On the second one, you'll see the lieutenant governor, and it says no one having received a majority, right? So the overall legislature will have to elect. Because if it's certified, when you go back up, I'll explain the process in a moment, and do the joint assembly, when no one has received a majority plus or majority in the first 3 offices, the General Assembly, the 180 legislators elect our governor, lieutenant governor, or treasurer. Now you have to remember, if you have questions on that, people didn't really think there were only going to be 2 parties when all this system was kind of put together. And so the idea is you could have 3 candidates, you could have a lot more candidates on the ballot. Constitution says you're going to have 3 names on the ballot tomorrow. We can talk about that if you have questions. So you'll have 3 names on the ballot, and then you as legislators are to pick, because you are the closest representatives of the people after the election, and potentially would elect the governor or the lieutenant governor. So we sometimes get buried in with our 2-party system, but when all this was put together, there were multiple or no parties really. It was just the beginning of parties. And so that's why it's kind of left in your hands to make the election when no one gets a majority. So what'll happen tomorrow is that, so you'll know, so you can tell all your friends, family, friends, and whatever, is that we'll have a joint assembly at 10 a.m. Senate will come over. For those of you who are new, the Senate sits in the front, 30 seats. There's 15 on each side, and they'll sit up in the front. They'll then be brought to order by the pro tem, because our outgoing lieutenant governor is actually on the ballot. And it's one of the contested races, so we don't have him preside over his own race or what could happen as an election. And so that's as the pro tem will preside, and they'll be gavelled in. Senator Hardy will take this report, keep it if you'd like, to make sure she reads correctly. She's going to read it from top to bottom. Okay, and after she's finished, our co-chair will make a motion that this report be adopted. This is the report you're saying the numbers are correct. You're the people that are counting the ballots, certifying the results from the Secretary of State, and the legislatures, depending on you to give a report as to what happened. We all know what happened, but you're giving the report. And so after it's read, the motion will be made to go and approve this report. That'll be probably by voice vote. I've never seen it any other way, but I'm hoping it's voice vote. And at that point, we will then proceed to elect a lieutenant governor by ballot. For those of you who have not been through this process before, Constitution says 3 names. So the peace and justice candidate will be on there, Democratic candidate, Republican candidate will be on there. The 3, Ian, Diamond Stone, David Zuckerman, and John Rogers will be on your ballot. Okay, those will be handed out. There'll be tellers, just like some of you've seen brought for the House slot today for an election. They'll be counted and then they'll be declared winner. Also, just kind of an aside, for those of you who are wondering the process tomorrow, Lieutenant Governor is sworn in on the Senate side at about 11:30. For those of you who are returning, you know that all the governor and the other statewide officers will be sworn in the joint assembly at 2:00 tomorrow afternoon. So you have two joint assemblies tomorrow, one in the morning at 10 to elect the lieutenant governor, and one at 2:00 to see the inaugural address and the swearing in of all the statewide officers. So that's a relatively basic overview. As some of you know, and those who don't know me don't know, but I talk a lot. So that may have been a little longer than you wanted, but I'll answer any questions, but I wanted to make sure you all knew what was gonna happen and what the process was. And once we're done questions, we will take a motion to approve this canvassing committee report. We'll take a vote on it, and then tomorrow we'll bring it up to the House.
Are there any questions for the secretary or the chairs? Yes, Rep. Austin.
I'm just wondering, how many registered voters are there in Vermont?
520,000 roughly. We reached an all-time high of registered voters this year, with new residents registering same-day voter registration.
And has there been in our history, vote for the lieutenant governor in this situation?
Yes.
Many times or just?
Well, I think the last one was the governor in 2014 or so.
2015, Governor Shumlin and Milne for the last one. There was a 2011, they were both, I think, and 2003, they were both.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sir,
Representative Lipsky.
Representative Lipsky, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Just a question regarding the lieutenant governor, polls. Candidate John Rogers received 171,804. Clearly, majority of the vote over the other candidates. The vote we take in the chamber tomorrow is, do they get added or subtracted?
You are the final deciders tomorrow. The 180 members of the General Assembly will be the only people voting tomorrow to decide which of the candidates who were on the November ballot, neither of whom received a majority, will become lieutenant governor.
So what is the historic protocol if a majority voted for one of the losing candidates here? Would they then become the?
So I'm gonna answer that. I know where you're going. The last time it was done is 1977. There were three candidates on the ballot. T. Gary Buckley was from Bennington. John. Can't remember the other candidates. The top vote getter was the Democrat John. I think it's John. You guys know. And there was some in the building. Let's just say eventually he may have been charged with crimes later on. So there was an undercurrent that there was an issue, and T. Gary Buckley was elected even though he was the second place finisher. Last time that's happened, I believe, maybe the Secretary of State can correct it, but I believe because the public was not so happy, he didn't even win the primary the next time. So, but there is a precedent, it has been done before. But otherwise, since then, it's, as far as I know, it's always been the person who had the most plurality. But that's as was mentioned, that's the 180 of you vote. You should also know, as a shootout from your question, the vote tomorrow is a majority of those voted. Okay, so you have three candidates on the ballot. If no one receives the majority, the plurality winner doesn't win. We do a second ballot.
Thank you for the clarification.
The second thing you need to know on that, I've never been asked these questions. This is taking a lot longer than usual. So the second thing you need to know is you have adopted today a rule, it's Rule 10. And so there's a question as to whether or not that applies. Because for elections, after two elections, you drop names off. I think our current interpretation is you do not, because the Constitution says you have 3 people on a ballot. So if somebody's thinking that 10 rule, I've never heard of, we're looking at the majority. I don't think that's happened in 250 years. But if it happens tomorrow, you do multiple ballots. And I believe what Betsy Ann and I are going to tell you is you don't drop people off on Rule 10. And the reason for that is because the Constitution says there's 3 names on your ballot by the Constitution. So we will not drop off that last name. So just keep balloting until you decide there's a majority. Okay?
Okay, in the back was Representative Kleppner.
My question was answered, thank you.
Okay, are there other questions? Representative Rachelson?
So, maybe a silly question, but it feels like it'd be good to know the answer. I know this was certified by the Secretary of State's office, but if anybody asks us, like, how do we know that these are the votes? Like, somebody taken out the sheets that have the backup, sort of compare these numbers with them. Were both those numbers
So I will invite Director Sheehan to jump in if he's got a better answer for this. But you can go back to the election night results page on the Secretary of State website, and you can see that the numbers that you have in front of you will align with the numbers that are now appearing on your election night results. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, the longer answer, I'm talking too much, wave me down. But the 247 city and town clerks compile the election night results and then certify those results through the official return of votes. Those get reported through the canvas, the statewide canvas. They align with what's up on our website at that point and are carried through. So that's the longer process. And then we have the election audit, we had on December 3rd, where we looked into seven towns. There's a longer process, for double checking and looking every which way at the votes and coming.
That's helpful, because it seems important to be able to tell
Yes.
people like, oh, we certified, but we didn't look at any now, like.
Safe to say that there's a multi-step process that happens at the local level and then at the state level before it gets to us in this room. But anybody who has their phone is welcome to check the website right now and see, or your computer, and see if it matches. It will match. Are there any other questions or comments before we entertain a motion? Do people feel comfortable with these results? Has anyone found an error or anything that we should discuss or bring up at this moment? All right. Seeing none and hearing no further conversation, I would entertain a motion to certify the results.
I move that we.
Go ahead.
I'll second the motion that we adopt.
Wait. Senator, if you could just wait, you can second it. Let's have Representative Byron make the first motion. Thank you.
I move that we certify the vote, it be adopted, the report of the Joint Canvassing Committee.
Thank you, Representative Byron. Senator Ingalls.
Second.
Thank you, Senator Ingalls. Sorry, we didn't rehearse that well enough, so.
It was natural, yeah.
Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are all those opposed say nay? Are there any abstentions? Wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone.